How exactly did country music become associated with whiteness? Well, today we're going to talk about it. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this at OneMikeHistory.com. But without further ado, let's get started. Country music, which started in the rural areas of the American South, is often seen as a music genre that is strongly linked to white culture. It seems to match the lives and feelings of white Americans, with stories in country music often deal with sadness, love, loss, and country life. Along with how it's presented to the media, it can seem as if it's deeply associated with whiteness. However, the story of country music isn't solely rooted in white culture. In fact, Black musicians and their traditions have significantly shaped the genre since its inception. When country music was born, it drew inspiration from a vast variety of musical styles, significantly those of African Americans. It is often overlooked cultural contribution is evident in the various aspects of country music, from the instruments to the song choices to the vocal and instrumental techniques. This rich influence can be compared to the impact of Black musicians have had on other genres like rock, jazz, and pop music. However, largely due to business decisions by predominantly white music execs, Black artists have been almost exclusively excluded from country music. One of the earliest influence on the creation of country music came directly from African culture, and that's the banjo. Originating in West African societies, this instrument was brought to America by African enslaved people. These early banjos were made from gourds and had a special design with a drum-like body and strings of different lengths. The banjo evolved in America and started to include features common to European string instruments, like a flat fingerboard and tuning pegs. The iconic banjo that we recognize today has 4 strings, with 3 long ones running the length of the instrument and a short thumb string. By the 1840s, only Black people were seen playing the banjo, but minstrel shows became popular during the 1850s, and white performers started playing the banjo, mocking Black culture. These shows became a huge hit, and soon the banjo was adopted by white audiences, setting the stage for the rise of hillbilly music in the early 1920s. Besides the banjo, Black cultural influence, many early country songs were inspired by Black spirituals, work songs, and the blues, each capturing the struggle and faith of enslaved people. Furthermore, several songs performed by the first hillbilly musicians were adapted by Black artists. In fact, popular country music songs were inspired by a hymn arranged by a Black minister. Even though our nation was super segregated during the 1920s and 30s, Black and white musicians would often collaborate on records. A famous example of this is Jimmie Rodgers, one of the fathers of country music, who teamed up with Louis Armstrong, a legendary jazz musician, for Blue Yodel No. 9 in 1929. This shows that both artists were drawing from the same musical well, even though they came from different genres. After World War I, there were about 50 Black singers and musicians that were a part of popular hillbilly records. As country music grew in popularity, particularly among white Southerners, record companies saw a profitable opportunity in country music. They thought it wouldn't be successful if it was seen as racially integrated. As a result, the Black artists who helped make previous records successful were no longer credited for their work. Instead, album covers featured white artists. And then country music began to be marketed solely as white music. This pushed Black musicians like Leslie Riddle and Rufus Payne, who greatly influenced their white counterparts with their musical styles, to the sidelines. So as white Southerners moved north, they brought country music along with them, fortifying the idea in people's minds that country music was a genre for only white people. Yet, Black musicians' impact left an indelible mark on country music. The Fisk Jubilee Singers from Nashville's Fisk University were instrumental in shaping the genre sound through their performances of Negro spirituals. DeFord Bailey's harmonica skills added depth to country music, making him a star in the early days of the Grand Ole Opry. DeFord Bailey, whose parents were enslaved, emerged as a star on the Barn Dance radio shows broadcast in Nashville's WSM station. His incredible performances of songs like Pan American Blues and The Fox Chase won the hearts of listeners across the South. In fact, his music played a huge part in the creation of the Grand Ole Opry in 1927, a stage that would become a cornerstone of country music. Bailey became one of the earliest members of the Grand Ole Opry and was one of its most frequent performers. However, despite his popularity and talent, Bailey's journey was not easy. His race was often concealed from radio audiences, and while he was on tour at the Opry, he faced the harsh realities of segregation across the South, leading to difficulties finding places to stay and seen as more of a mascot than a respected artist. Sadly, even Bailey's relationship with the Grand Ole Opry and the broader music industry soured over time. He was unceremoniously fired in 1941, and George D. Hay, the founder of the Opry, later remarked that Bailey was lazy in a comment that not only reflected his racial prejudice, but also disregarded Bailey's contribution to the Grand Ole Opry. Succeeding Bailey was Charley Pride. Charley Pride was one of the first really famous Black country artists. He emerged in the 1960s. Despite his incredible talent, Pride faced a lot of challenges solely based on his race. During this time period, records were often divided by race. There were race records by Black artists for Black listeners, and then there was white music. This segregation of the music industry made it hard for Black country musicians like Pride to gain recognition that they so readily deserved. This trend of minimizing the achievements of Black country artists carried on into the mid-20s. As country music grew in popularity, it was often seen as rural and white to appeal to a predominantly white audience. But with the racial prejudice of the 60s also came increased awareness of the civil rights movement and the realization that the contributions of Black artists had been largely ignored in the country music scene. This led to efforts to recognize and honor Black artists that shaped the genre. Charley Pride became the first Black artist to be inducted in the Country Music Hall of Fame, and Ray Charles, a significant figure in the world of music as a whole, blended country with R&B and pop and changed the country music scene forever. Today, modern country music has experienced significant influence from Black music genres like hip-hop and R&B, leading to its evolution into a multifaceted genre. This musical blending has resulted in a richer country music landscape, underscored by its variety of cultural influences. However, challenges persist for Black artists in this musical sphere. Representation and inclusion remain areas that demand attention, as Black artists often struggle for visibility and a fair recognition in the country music scene. In response to these challenges, movements like the Black Opry have taken strides to promote Black artists and diversify the genre. The Black Opry is a grassroots initiative focused on highlighting Black talent. In this genre, it offers a stage to Black artists, making a remarkable change to the largely white-centered narrative of country music that exists today. This effort makes it clear that the future of country music involves a continued effort to break down barriers relating to race, but there's still a lot of work to be done. For instance, the Black Opry's founder, Holly G, would point out the current state of feelings towards the genre. As a country music fan, I don't feel safe in country music spaces, and it doesn't surprise me that Black people are hesitant to be a part of this space. It's also crucial to note that throughout the history of country music, Black women have almost entirely been left out. This is largely because Black women face both racism and sexism and were given no platform at all to break into the industry. The first Black woman to enter the country music scene and gain commercial success was Linda Martell, who released an album, Color Me Country, in 1970. Recently, though, there have been more Black female artists entering the country music scene, but they still face issues of discrimination. But there's some renewed interest created by Beyonce's introduction into the country music scene, and hope that this excitement and anticipation will carry into broader representation within the genre. Holly G once again points out that There's such variety within Black country music, and this diversity is what I hope others will ultimately see and appreciate. In the end, Black people have long made contributions to country music, even though they've been overlooked. Their influences began right from the early beginnings of the genre and continue to shape its sound and storylines today. Usually, people see country music as a tale of drunken nights and heartbreak, but there's even more common theme of life's hardship and struggle. This theme resonates through the Black experience in the United States. Sometimes people mistakenly see arts, music, dance, and other creative areas as a mostly white space, and this includes country music. However, the truth is that many parts of American culture, including these, would not exist without the contributions of Black individuals. And so as we go forward, I hope to see a future where Black country artists are celebrated for their past and future contributions to the music genre. Thank you. I'm your host, Country Boy. This has been the history of country music. And if you like stories like this, you can find more stories like this. OneMicHistory.com. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so on Buy Me Coffee, Patreon page in the description below. Peace.